sent a text message or an email that was misunderstood? I know I have. I've sent project quotations to clients where the scope wasn't properly defined, and I ended up doing more work than was anticipated. I've fired off instructions to my team over WeChat, and we ended up having to double back and redo the work because I didn't clearly describe what it was that I was looking for. And you better believe that I have sent what I thought was a very witty, clever text message to somebody I was trying to flirt with. And I ended up completely embarrassed because they had no idea what I was trying to say. I've spent the past 8 years working in marketing and communication. My job is to use words in a certain way that will make people feel something or want to perform a specific action, like click on something, share something, and most commonly influence them so profoundly that they are willing and eager to hand over their hard-earned money. Now, you may not work in marketing, but I want to propose the idea that the basic skills of marketing apply to each and every one of your daily lives. And by harnessing this skill, you can actually make your life easier. Because at the heart of marketing is effective communication. Now, in your job, you may need to convince clients, team members, or external stakeholders of a specific position, belief, or insight. You may need to initiate new product launches. So you need to build trust with team members, or you need to lead team members into a transition. And in your personal life, you need to advocate for your needs. You try to build trust with family, friends, lovers. You want to be understood. And through effective communication, you can limit or lessen the barriers to achieving this objective. So, how do you go about effectively communicating? It's actually pretty simple, but the thing about communication that most people forget is what you say doesn't matter as much as how you are understood. I'm going to say that again. What you say is important, but what makes what you have said important to someone else is how they understand you. I've been fascinated with how words can elicit certain responses for as long as I can remember. Ever since I was little, I loved writing, and I would spend hours and hours in my treehouse and on the floor in my bedroom or on our porch, writing stories and burning through notebooks and gel pens faster than my parents could buy them. I wrote my first newsletter about cheese when I was 9 years old. Pretty important topic, if you ask me. But more than writing, I loved watching people read my stories. Because I learned very quickly that the way that I used words and constructed sentences, I could elicit certain responses and emotions from the adults that I would pass my stories on to. I could illustrate entire worlds inside somebody's mind. I could make somebody feel something, see something, hear something that wasn't actually right there in front of them. I could transport readers to the plains of Middle America, where wheat swayed in a melodic dance in the wind, a sea of yellow, cut into perfect quadrants by dusty roads that disappeared straight into the horizon. Later in life, I realized that the power of using words in a particular way was how the biggest companies made their millions. It was how organizations built communities around a purpose. And it was how politicians galvanized people around ideas. So naturally, I found my way into marketing and communications. Now, in marketing, we tell brands, you won't be successful unless you know your target audience. But time and time again, even the biggest brands in the world fail to abide by this simple rule. Take, for example, Apple. In 2016, Apple launched their iPhone 7 with the campaign, "This is 7, 就是七." Now, in Cantonese speaking regions, arguably a pretty important market for Apple, the campaign slogan, "This is 7, sounded a lot like, "This is penis." Probably not what the smartphone retailer wanted people to think about. Now, Apple paid the price of this blunder on social media and in the press, and other brands have gone on to fail to properly understand their target audience, especially in China, and pay even bigger consequences than this. But the important thing about effective communication is that, again, it's not about what you say, but it's about how other people understand you. And it's not only brands that fail to think about this, it's us as individuals too, right? Even myself, a communication specialist, I often fail to think about how the receiver is going to understand me. Each and every one of us in this room communicate with people on a daily basis using a language that is not your native language, or maybe it's not the other person's native language, or maybe both. Even if you don't live in a foreign country or go to an international MBA program, the likelihood that you're going to have to communicate with somebody from a different culture, a different language, is incredibly high. And the thing about this is that even if you say something in the correct way, there is still an enormous chance that you're going to be misunderstood by the person who's receiving your message. So, how can we take all of this into account and effectively communicate? I'm going to give you a relatively simple 4-step formula. First, it's about understanding what the desired outcome of what you are saying is. What are you trying to do with what you're saying? Are you trying to make somebody feel a specific way? Are you trying to make them feel happy, sad, angry, inspired? Are you trying to make them perform a specific action? Do you want them to perform a task that they have no knowledge of how to do or that they don't want to do, but it's your job to convince them? So what is your purpose of what you're trying to say? Next, write down or say out loud what you want to say uninhibited. This is essentially your first draft. Now, the incredibly important part, think about your target audience. Who are you speaking to? What is their native language? What is their background? What prior experiences, skill set, knowledge is going to impact how they understand you? Now, take into account what you want to say, the objective of what you want to say, who your target audience is, and look at the words that you have used. Have you used words that could be translated in different ways in different languages? Have you used phrases or idioms that would be difficult for a non-native speaker to pick up on? Have you provided enough context? Change and adjust your drafts as necessary and go back through the formula. Now, I've spent the last 5 or so minutes talking to you about communication in a way that you have probably interpreted to mean communication between humans, right? But I want you to pause and think about how effective communication is going to look in the future. As we move into a world that is more likely than not to be dominated by AI-powered tools, it's not only going to be about how we effectively communicate with other people. We may not need to know how to make a PPT or calculate and analyze data, but we will need to know how to communicate with an AI-powered tool what the output is that we need. And the same rule is going to apply. What you say is not going to matter as much as how you are understood. How was that language model trained? Did you use words that could be interpreted in a different way? Did you provide enough context in your prompt? Did you provide enough information or training? Just as we communicate with humans, we're going to have to learn how to effectively communicate with machines in order to get the desired output that we want. Now, I invite you to think back to that text message or that email that you sent that was misunderstood. Had you taken the time to think about who you were speaking to, the words that you used, the context that you provided, could you have saved yourself time, money, embarrassment? What you say matters, but what makes an impact is how you are understood.